You're listening to the Old Tube Radio Network.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen?
Greetings to you,
Wherever you are, for music and the latest news from home and from afar, the station for you is
OTR, Old Tube Radio.
the station for you is
OTR.
And we certainly hope the station for you is OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network, in our 30-something year. I don't know. We've been here a long time. On Saturday nights, 27085, listening for your old tube radios to fire up. And we will do that again. We are located in Central California. 27085 is our frequency of choice. That's channel 11. And we'll be listening for some of the classic tube radios manufactured from 1958 through about 1978. We have a great band of tube radio collectors who like to stop by and share their radios with us, kind of recreate the way it sounded, the way it was back in the day, when before the internet, before your social media, when it was fun on the Citizen Band radio. This is the Old Tube Radio Network. My name is Dennis, and we're looking for radio number 1.
45.
And I think we can do that. Hello, Paul. I'm going to take just a moment here to take a look at...
45.
Hey, there you are. Take a look at all my audio things to make sure we're running correctly. It looks like the video is up and running, and we will say, tell us about your glow-in-the-dark radio. Hello, Paul.
Okay, it's one of the older ones. This is a Helicopter model CB1. I believe it's the first one that Helicopter's made.
Yes, I believe it is for the 11 meter when they because they were making, of course, 11 meter radios, or radios that had the 11 meter band before that. In fact, I actually have one. It's an HT37, and the Helicopters CB1 was their first radio, and it's really a beautiful radio. It was sort of based on their they had a speaker cabinet, and basically what they did is they secreted an 11-meter radio in that speaker cabinet and gave you a push-to-talk bar. I have a picture over at oldtuberadio.net, and I'm going to go ahead and see if we can't get it displayed on the video side. I have an affinity for Helicopters because my first shortwave receiver was a Helicopters. My first big walkie-talkie set was Helicopters, and I still have my first AM/FM portable radio that I used to do DX work on, and that was also a Helicopter. So let me swap the picture here, and I'll stop talking, and we'll go back to you, and we'll learn a little bit about the Helicopters Charlie Bravo 1. Over.
Yeah, okay. Cliff did a nice job on this. Real good picture of the thing. He's got the original microphone thing. I don't have it. I didn't get one with it, and I've been searching for one, but just haven't had any luck with it. So my microphone is a Alexa Voice, model 727 ceramic banana mic. And I don't think it did too bad of a job. I know it's not over-modulating anything for sure. But anyway, this thing doesn't have a meter on the thing, but I'll tell you what it does have, and I'll let you get into that, but it has the great Magic Eye 2, which I love watching it. It's just fantastic. Back to you, Dennis.
Yeah, when you look at the thing, it doesn't have much at all, but it's just a great radio. It kind of defies the utilities look of the radio. It defies the the later glamour with the wood sides. It almost looks like something that would be in one of the science fiction movies of the time. 1959 is the year this radio came out, so it was their first radio, and I agree with you. Cliff does a great job. This is just a great picture. He's showing the Magic Eye running. He's showing how you talk on that thing. You have to press the bar in front. It's a push-to-talk bar, and I only see one control. Is that on-off? Is there another control there? Is there even a squelch? Like you said, no meter, but it's just a really nice cabinet. Made by Helicopters. I'm showing that it only does 115-volt AC, so that was not a mobile-style radio. And unlike some of their later radios, this actually had quite a few tubes. I think part of it was when the 11 tubes, they used a rectifier. Was it a 5Y3GT rectifier tube that added some more tubes in there? But sounds good. You've got really nice loud audio with your combination there. I can't see where the microphone goes in. I don't know if that's a hardwired microphone or if it actually has a plug somewhere in there. But we'll go back to you for transmission.
You can. You have to plug it in the back of the thing. You got a place back there for just push-in type plug, and you got to stretch the cord around the whole thing. But no, it's very basic, but very nice looking, like you say. It's a big radio. It's got 11 tubes in it. They did the first radio, A#1. I've got one of the old ones sitting here pretty close, and there's no comparison to it as far as this thing is not set up at all for mobile. This is for sitting on a table and talking on it. Because the mobile radios that they got up is completely different, you know that. But well, I'll tell you what, I just can't see enough for it. With that red light on the left-hand side tells you when you got the radio on, that's about all it does. But then you got that magic eye. With that is we're watching it right now. It's amazing to watch. Anyway, Dennis, that's about it. I got in my head. Oh, I just squelched on the back. I haven't quite figured out what their idea was. Right? It's got a slide switch on the thing, in the back of the thing. And you slide it, and then it goes on the front speakers. Now, I don't know what that's supposed to do. It's not doing very much, I'll tell you, but it sure is. You can't hear anything out there. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
All right. Well, the original concept of Class D service was to keep things simple. This was not supposed to be amateur radio. You were not supposed to be, have to take a test or be technically inclined to tune and load and anything like that. It was KEO 8492 base to Unit 1. It was a husband talking to his wife. It was businesses, talking about pickup parts, things like that. So it was simple was the word, and this definitely from 1959 is a simple radio. Let me just double check that is indeed a single channel radio. There's no channel selector or switch or anywhere on that, right?
No, not at all. No switch whatsoever.
All right. So what you would do is you would buy a crystal pair. And probably have to go inside and take the case off. But my guess, it probably came with channel 11. That was sort of a call channel, and yours is doing quite well. In fact, you know what? Before you go, give me a transmission. I'll slide over to the receiver, and we'll see how well the channel 11 crystal is doing for staying on frequency. Over.
Yeah, okay. The mic on the desk can work, but it's a little far to get that way, so it's not designed for that. To hold the mic up, I guess. If you do, you got to get real close to it anyway. Hope I have enough time there, Dennis.
All right, it's doing really well. The crystal is almost right on frequency, 27084.7. And it seemed like it was moving just a little bit, but didn't have to. When I went into the sideband zero beat, you were looking and sounding good. Halocrafters CB1 is the radio we're talking about from 1959. Paul is on the other end of the microphone. I keep forgetting the extent of his collection and the amount of radio manufacturers that he brings to us over from QTH in North Fork. Thank you, Paul. Good way to get us started off. I have you logged in as Radio 1 at 848. Halocrafters doing a good job. One of my favorites. Thanks.
Thanks, Dennis.
I guess that's the first version, CB1. I think they were still referred to as a little phone. I don't know if there's any marking on the radio at all calling it a little phone, but I think they did call it that. The Old Tube Radio Network, we are listening for your radio check-ins. And let's go over to an SWL check-in, jumping up and down from Harriman, Utah. And you did jump up far enough to move the Old Tube Radio Richter scale. I see you on our Old Tube Radio Richter scale. Let me go to the SWL mode and get Ray. Mr. 360, SWL 44, checking in tonight and looking good at oldtuberadio.net. Thanks, Ray. Seeing a lot of little strange buzzing noises and things. We will see if we can't get some E-skip hanging in with us tonight, too. That would be fun.
Station?
And hello, station. Over.
Good. At least I got in there. SWO 193 wants to check in as Johnson Messenger 223.
All right, so we can do that. We like radio check-ins. That is why we are here on the Old Tube Radio Network. Radio number 2 tonight, and we will log you in at 8:57 on the E.F. Johnson. We're getting the classics, Hallicrafters, and here's one from E.F. Johnson, another manufacturer like Hallicrafters that started in, they were well-known amateur radio manufacturers. And the Messenger 223 was I think they're like their third offering in the Class D mode. But E.F. Johnson really knew how to make a great transmitter like Hallicrafters did. And so it's not a problem for them to tone things down and package them up for 11 meters. I'll find a picture of a 223, and we will go back to you for a transmission. Over.
Check. Now, mine doesn't have the modulator light like the one that I've seen, because I know you have, I think you have both of them, the one with the modulator light and one without the modulator light, but mine doesn't have the modulator light.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to go ahead, and that is the one we'll feature on the video here. We'll pop that one in, but there is a version that has a little light on the front panel, a little red light for modulation. I'm not sure if that's a later model or an earlier model, or sort of you could pick and choose. There it is. One of the famous E.F. Johnson radios. They're, at least for late 60s, they took the Messenger 2, they added 23 channels and put an S meter in it, and you had a pretty decent bass. This is a very, very popular seller. If you wanted a little bit more than what we were getting on the Hallicrafters, a squelch and a channel selector and an S meter, this is the way to go. It is sounding good. Give us another transmission. Over.
Check. Yeah, I was hoping to get it in there, so I'm glad that I did. So here you go.
All right, nice natural sounding audio. I applaud you for having that radio hooked up. A nice way to demonstrate for all that you don't have to do too much to these old tube radios to make them sound good. Just key them up once a week on the Old Tube Radio Network. The original price on those was around $200. Typically, they came with a desk mic. I guess you could get it without the desk mic, but at about $215, it came with I think it was made by Turner, a desk microphone. This was also like the CB1, a base radio only. Would not go mobile. Their other mobiles were like the Messenger 2, I think, or the Messenger 123, I think, was a mobile version about this time. And the manufacturer run on this was from 1969 to 1972. You got a classic there, 93, so make sure you keep it going.
Check. All right, I wanted to make sure I got it in. We're out. Break OTR.
All right, we're glad you did, Louie. We like to check in as many radios as possible here on a Saturday night. The break OTR. You are indeed tuned to the Old Tube Radio Network.
Well, I guess my tubes are warmed up by now. So, anyway, Dennis, this is me again. First time tonight with the radio. That's I was just checking in. But I want to check in my general radio telephone, the Super MC11A. This is the 24-channel version of the MC11. And also, we're running this here with a handheld stock microphone. Over.
Okay, just writing stuff down on the paper. It is amazing that you are not running some type of amplified microphone with a battery. That is great audio as always. Just a reminder that we do archive the net here on an MP3 over at oldtuberadio.net. And if you'd ever like to hear how you sound coming into the receiver on this end, it's easily done by going to the archive page at old2radio.net. And you are sounding marvelous there, Chris. We will switch our radios and get a picture of the General Radio Telephone Super MC11A as we go back to you for another transmission.
Okay, well, I told you I was going to try to get at least one in, but, I at least got one more warmed up here, and maybe I might have at least one more warmed up. And, Lord behold, I might even have at least one more warmed up, and the last one's still cold.
All right, well, we have yet another hour to go before we completely sign out of here, so I think you should be able to get everything warmed up. If you're watching the video, there is a similarity. There is the likeness on the radio that Chris is talking on. That is So Loud. Rack handles and all, the nice green dial display. Another great picture from Green Arrow, SWL 135, showing the radio in action. And speaking of action, give us another transmission before you go find another radio. Radio number 3, the General Radio Telephone Super MC11A. Thanks.
All right, Dennis. Yeah, we'll be back with another here in just a bit. I'm out.
And let's see, we've passed the top of the hour. Let's see if the Jingle Singers can give us an ID to let people know your favorite place to be on a Saturday night.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, your favorite spot on the dial by far is known to you as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
84. 5.
Okay, we'll take them in order. Hello, Paul. Jump into the green room. We'll be right with you. And stepping up to the microphonium at 9:04 with Radio 4 is SWL 84. Hello, Jerry. Over.
Roger. The tape is rolling and up to speed once again. And we thought we'd blow the dust off of this Johnson Messenger once again. I know I've checked in on it pretty recent, but this one happened to be the closest one to my chair. So, man, I guess that's a sign of getting lazy or something. But since it was handy, I thought I would do that. And we're on a tuner. Sorry, Dennis. A tuner. Boy, I had a long day today. A Turner plus a 3 microphone. Man, been a long day, I guess. And we're not no 25,000 watt lip over here. We're just doing about 3 watts, so Roger.
All right, boy, it sounds like 133, really very, very loud audio. And it is the Messenger 223. Does it have the modulation light above the dial, or is it no modulation light?
It is a amber modulation light right above the volume control, and of course the volume control, all that does is operate the volume. The squash knobbing over here is the on and off switch, plus the squash. So only 2 knobs on the bottom, mic cord or mic jack on the far right, and dial on the top right, and your S meter on the top left. And boy howdy. Well, I did want to say, we're not leaving forever there, Dennis, and plus 2 of my girls are going to step up and stay in the house from time to time. So one of my daughters and son-in-law and grandkids are going to stay here, and then I guess when she gets tired, her daughter is going to be here. So, but they'll at least be able to mow the yard there, Roger.
Indeed, yeah, there'll be activity at the fort, and then feed any stray animals that come by as well. We are chatting with radio number 4 tonight. Jerry is in front of his microphone connected to the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223, and a good choice. Moments ago, Radio 2, we had the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223 that did not have the other little accessory modulation light, and yours does. So we've got a picture of that. And you can see it like Jerry mentioned right above the volume control. And we're also showing the stock mic that came with it. It was, I think, like a Turner microphone, but they redid the talk bar to say Johnson. They put an E.F. Johnson logo on there. And I think you mentioned you are using a different microphone. And, plenty of audio. I don't know, I mean, if you want to try any adjustments or anything, because we do record this, but everything is working good here on Channel 11. Does the S-meter work? Can I actually get a signal report, like 9 pounds, good modulation, Chestnut and Herndon or something?
I got you about an S8. And the launch put is going pretty close to S9, so good clear audio, and I know this one's accurate because I've listened to you before on several different radios, and even solid state stuff there from time to time, mobiles and stuff, and those are pretty, the newer ones that I had years ago, I had you about an 8.5, and of course like on the Robbins, you can adjust that S-meter, so I adjusted everything about where those other radios were. And I think I tuned you in one time and checked you out on I think it was a Galaxy 949, something I was using for a while when I was a truck driver. And but you're about 8.5 there, Roger.
All right, looks good. I normally don't ask for signal reports, but I see that big S-meter on there, and I thought, well, if it's working, might as well do that. You are S9 modulating up to 5 dB over S9, so putting in a good signal as well. The E.F. Johnson Messenger 223, that is a radio that we kind of recommend here at the Old Tube Radio Network. If you were looking for your first, if you want to jump in and looking for your first radio, look for one of those. They're usually fairly reasonably priced. They often sometimes come with that microphone that we have displayed, the nice big desk mic. And if you want the basics, you want all 23 channels, you want an S-meter, you want great audio from E.F. Johnson, knows how to build a transmitter and a good receiver, and don't have to worry about tuning and loading and finding knobs on the back or whatever, that is a great radio for you. More information about it at in the Sam's PhotoFax 23, page 53, and weekly here on the Old Tube Radio Network when they check in. Give us another transmission. We have Paul is standing by for Radio 5, and anyway, you're sounding good. Glad you brought it by.
Very good. Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Paul, for standing by. We'll make this really quick there. But we also have another Johnson Messenger that is not near as pristine as this one here. But it does work. We kind of picked it up as a parts rig just in case I needed it. But one of the days I'm gonna have to warm that up and get it going. But pretty much everything I've got here on the bench here is got back up this and back up that and extra this, and so whatever I have, I usually have three or four of them just in case. Okay, Dennis, good job, and we'll be listening for the duration, and we'll talk at you probably about next month. Take care, Roger.
Okay, yeah, we'll hold down the fort for you, and we will check in with you next time. Radio number 5 coming up is Paul, SWL 45, and hello, Chris, 37. You can take your spot in the green room, and you will be radio number 6. Thanks to Jerry for the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223, and also want to say hello to TJ out there who is watching over on the YouTube video and remembering the good old days of classic tube radios. That's what we're doing here on Saturday nights is trying to relive that, sort of like you might do when you drive your old car to the hamburger stand with the fins on it. And on Friday nights, we do it here on Saturday nights with the radios. Hello, Paul. What time is it? It is 9:12 on my big clock, and you've got a radio for us. Over.
you have a good vacation. Must be gone, huh? All right. Anyway, I want to check in my helicopter CP7.
All right. Boy, we haven't had one of those in a while either. It's a nice night for helicopters so far. Could be interesting. Let me see if I have a shot of the little phone of that model, CB7. May have to fish it out here somewhere, but looks like it's got some good audio and a good signal. And back to you for transmission.
Okay. Well, this thing's about half the size of the CB1, but it's got a lot of little goodies in it. It's only have 7 tubes in the thing, but this is definitely will go mobile. It's a solid little radio, real solid. It's got latches on the side, which is real neat on the thing on both sides. One latch where you can just open up the whole top, get into the crystals, and get into everything in there. It's just a really well-made, well-designed radio. It has nothing on the front as far as meters. It has a place for them, but of course I got the one that doesn't have them. It's pretty rare. Yeah, I think that one you ought to think it's got the meters on it. I wish I had those meters. Anyway, I don't. Anyway, it's got a modulation mount on the thing. It's 6 channels, and it's just neat little radio. It's, like I say, it's well built like a tank. It's real strong to go on the mobile and everything. Back to you, Dennis.
Helicopters did that in the later models of not in the CB1, there wasn't a place for it, but there are other little phones where it was almost like an automobile of the day. You know, back in the early 60s, you got a clock and a heater and a radio and white wall tires and air conditioning and power brakes and power steering, were all these options. So you could get a very basic car and save a lot of money. And Helicopters did a similar thing where they made, if you're watching the video, little panel, I'll call them inserts or cutouts, and then you could add, and it wasn't very expensive. I think they were in the $20 range, S-meters and tunable VFOs, and I think they were fairly easy to install. Where you'd mount them in the slot there, and there was probably a plug-in somewhere on the inside of the radio, and you could buy those as accessories. But you could keep the basic cost of the radio down. As we were talking earlier, some people, were just using these for short communications or business, and they really didn't care about S-meters and tunable things, and so you could make it very economical to keep the price down. Radio 5, the Hammerland, the Helicopters is one of those H things. There's the infamous red logo too on that. Helicopters CB7 little phone, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 channels maybe, so they were a little more advanced, I guess, than the CB1. And give us another transmission. I'm going to take a look at the S-meter. I think I'm not sure if I can tell you which one between this and the 7 has more oomph on the S-meter, but they both sound good. Over.
I'm a little low on frequency on this one, if I remember right when I checked it. It's all right, but it's still low. Anyway, you can hear me. You got it tuned in. I hope you do. Anyway, this thing has a stock microphone. It's still got a ceramic electro voice. No colors, electro voice on the thing. That's right, you got to back off this thing, but it's a handheld. You get up too close, it starts modulating funny. Other than that, that's about it. It's a little plain Jane, I'll tell you, but it's a neat little radio by Helicopters.
Yeah, sounding good. Okay, I did the zero beat on you. Those listening in heard the ew as I went to sideband and tried to find you. And I had to search. You are at 82.27.82.8. So it has slipped down a little bit. And if I detune a little bit on the receiver here, your audio comes up. Because I was going to say your CB1 was a little bit louder. But if I get you tuned in right on frequency, the 7 comes up a little bit. So anybody listening on your old tube radio, you might go take your delta tune to the minus side when Paul takes a transmission on the CB7. But certainly within my passband range, because I keep it a little bit wide just for that reason. Another Helicopters, like I said, one of my favorite radios, sounding good. I'll let you take another transmission, Paul, if anybody wants to try and get you tuned in a little bit. But it sounds good, and we like the tube radios. Back to you.
Yeah, it looks like I need to look for a crystal on it. I probably got one laying around somewhere, hopefully I do. It's kind of hard to find. This one has a little rag in there that says the channel number on it. It's got A, B, C, D, that's the 6 channels. And it's because the light goes over when you your modulation device. So that's really all you need, especially for a mobile radio. Thanks for checking it in, Dennis.
All right, thanks for bringing it by from Helicrafters. Was it William Halligan and all his crew? They're making more than radios, transmitters and receivers, and I think they did televisions. I've got a portable radio. Helicrafters, a great company all throughout, I guess, till the early 70s. Northrop Corporation was a subsidiary in the 60s, and they started importing a lot of their stuff in the 70s, and then like most of the manufacturers, they were kind of out the door. But we thanks to our tube radio operators, we get to relive them. Radio number 6 is standing by. Chris, I hope you are didn't have to run away out of the radio room, but if you're still there, give us a transmission. Hello, 37.
Hello, Dennis. All right, Dennis. Well, this time here we are talking on our Chris 23 Plus CB transceiver. 23 channel tuber. It glows in the dark like all the other ones. But this one here, I am running this here with the original handheld stock microphone. Over.
And doing a good job. We encourage people to run the radios when they can as stock, and then those listening in can kind of hear, well, this is what the radio sounds like out of the box. So when they find one at their local flea market or thrift store or eBay, they can kind of get an idea of what it is they might be in for, and if indeed they might want to add a microphone or something, as we have heard, and including this radio, a lot of them you don't need to add anything. You don't need to do any amplification or modifications, because they sound great out of whatever box they might have been in 50 or 60 years ago. I'll put up on the video a shot of the Chris 23 Plus as we go to Chris himself, taking a transmission. Back to you.
I got another one over here warming up, so I'll get off this one and get off to another one.
All right, don't go away, Chris. Take another transmission. Your last transmission, the signal went way down. I want to make sure there's not a coax issue or something.
Oh, all right. Oh, I see that here. Hang on. It dropped this.
Yeah, it keys up, and then you can see the carrier drop. I'm assuming your receive is still okay, right? All right, is your receive still okay, over? Okay, yeah, it keys up, and then it drops a little bit. You might see that if you're watching an external SME. I still have the audio is there, just the signal is low, so might have to get in there and rock a couple of tubes. It is checked in, though. You're Radio 6 on the Chris 23 Plus, so just make a note that it might be a bit under the weather, and I bet it'll sound great next week. Over. All right, the old Tube Radio Network, and are the Jingle Singers somewhere? I think they are contractually obligated, is that a word, to give us a set amount of advertisements, if you will, or jingles, if you will, and let's try see if we can get number 3 out of them tonight. This is the old Tube Radio Network.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you, wherever you are. The friendliest station for you by far is known to all and
OTR, the old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
Hope the station for you is OTR, the old Tube Radio Network. We're looking for Radio 7. Now, you are way down in my noise level. Over. Okay, if you are on a different radio, then I will suspect your coax switch or some thing in the coax antenna department. Over. And let me say hello to those listening at oldtuberadio.net. Right in the front row there, SWL 31, Robert and Teresa in Hendersonville, Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, right behind, and Angola, New York as well. Frisco, Texas, Medina, New York, a couple of New York stations, Madera, California, Emmitsburg, Maryland still in there, Dallas, Georgia. Hello to you and the unknown SWL. Hope our stations there on the Florida coast are staying safe and doing whatever is necessary to stay out of harm's way. We are looking for radio number 7.
All right, break OTR.
And that is sounding pretty darn good. To break OTR, go ahead, over.
There was a coax.
Okay, that happens. You know, it just coax is like a tree. You know, it'll be great, and then all of a sudden, it'll just be bad. Like a tree will be there in a spot, and then it'll jump out in front of you when you're driving.
Well, it seems to be working right now. My meter's showing it's all working. So it's showing a swing over there. It's definitely showing a swing up here now. So I guess it's working. So can I check this one in?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if that was a Chris or not, but it's definitely showing some forward modulation on my little wimpy S meter. You can, whatever this is, unless you've checked it in before, let's see. It's going to be Radio 7, over.
Yes, it is. This here is going to be my G PowerMate Gem Marine Products 23-channel tuber that goes in the dark. This is the pretty blue one, and we are running this one here with the amplified D104 Lollipop microphone.
Okay, so is this the radio you use on your dinghy?
Yeah, on my dinghy.
Okay, because no doubt Gem Marine probably made radios for Marine, but this was a 11-meter version. Actually, this is, I think, one of the, I'm going to say, import clones that many radios used, Robin and some of the other ones. So it made it easy for it. It's definitely got great audio, and we'll go back to you for another transmission on the Gem Marine as we show a picture here.
Okay, well, at least this is working. I think that was my problem with the other one there. It just went wacko on me all at once. So I'll have to change out a coax jumper right there. So that's where it's at on one of those jumpers. But, hey, it is working, so I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to fire up another one while I've still got coax working.
Okay, coax is important. When you read a lot about that, a lot of people say you should change your coax occasionally, especially if it's 20 years or 30 years old and it's been out in the sun and things happen, or you're going to redo some antennas. Always think about the coax. It's sort of an expensive proposition, but when you see how important it is, one, to not blow up the radio, and two, for getting out properly, then it is a good investment. Radio number 7, the Gem Marine Products G PowerMate. It is sounding good, Chris. Thanks for bringing it by on the Old Tube Radio Network.
Okay, well, I did change radios in between that time.
Okay, you must have plenty of coax jumpers to do that without hurting the radio or yourself.
Well, yeah, they're all run through a switch box here, and they all go through one that goes from my S meter and everything, modulation, SWR meter, all that stuff, and then over into a preamp. And it's the one that's on the preamp is the one that was messing up, so that's the one I need to change. I got it working right now, but anyway, it shows everything going the way it's supposed to. But I want to check in my Courier Royale 23-channel tuber that glows in the dark. This is one with all the knobs and the blinking lights and the hidden knobs in the back. You know, they just had this thing hidden with all kinds of good things. They got to be good because it's a Royal. You know, hey, one of the best. But and this here, I'm running this here with the amplified D104 Lollipop also.
All right, the Courier Royale, if I can get the picture to behave here, is really sounding loud tonight. So it's liking all the whatever you did to the coax. Courier's top of the line I think it might have been one of their last tube radio offerings, but top of the line is we sort of progressed tonight from the CB1. What a great way to start in a radio that basically had nothing but a great transmitter and a nice look and good receiver with 2 knobs and a push-to-talk bar. And here we are on radio number 8. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 knobs, a channel selector. I think there's something in the back, S meter, some switches. So as things progressed from 1958 to 59, they just got out of control, didn't they?
Well, it's a good out of control.
I agree with that. And there were still radios that were on the plain side that you could buy and do it that way, or you could get something deluxe. The Courier Royale would definitely fall into that category, and it's doing a good job here for Radio 8.
Okay, well, I think I get this, and the next one's going to take a few minutes, just got to warm up.
All right, it is coming up 9:30 here on the Old Tube Radio Network, so there will be plenty of time to get your radio in. What was I going to say about the Courier? That is also an 11-tube radio. Collins mechanical 6 kilohertz mechanical filter was added into the receive side of that to help things out. So, like I said, it was top-of-the-line radio. There is a service manual available at oldtuberadio.net if anybody out there has one or would like to know more information about one. Let's try the Jingle Singers again at the bottom of the hour. Here at the Old Tube Radio Network, 27085 is where we are at in Central California. We are awaiting the glow-in-the-dark radio check-ins, the shortwave listeners, and maybe some E-skip. You just never know.
You're listening in the latest style at
27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio.
In wonderful
Fresno, California.
This is the Old Tube Radio Network, and we are listening for radio number 9.
45.
And hello, Paul. SWL 45. Paul is up in North Fork, which is 35 or 40 miles to the north and east of my location down here in the valley. And looks like you may have Radio 9. Over.
Okay. And my Gonset C15, 3429.
Ooh, a Gonset. I hope Mike is listening, because I think he checked in on the Gonset when he was doing the SWL number. So let me see if I have that. Gonset were sort of like helicopters, where they started with a number. Helicopters started with 1 and worked their way up. The Gonsets started with 11. It was a G11 was their 1959 radio offering. So this is one a little bit down the road, the Gonset G11, and you gave me another number there. What was the other number with that?
Yeah, okay, this is 3429.
Okay, I actually have, there was a 28 and a 29, and sometimes the designation numbers were just for ones that were AC or DC. Boy, have we ever checked this in? I don't even remember putting this one up, but there it is, and I think it is the picture we have is from your collection, and this is a little different than what I thought. It's certainly a little bit more, has some more accessories than the early G11 models. Back to you for a transmission.
Yeah, the only difference on those last numbers on the front, 3429 and 34 with 28. It's just 6 volts or 12 volts DC. That's the only difference in the two radios. But this one right here that I got does have a little extra goodie on it. This has got a spot on the thing. The other one didn't have a spot on it. So that's about the only thing it does. I think they look about identical. Neat little radio. They're not very big. They're almost like a VS radio in general. Maybe a little bit longer, but just about the same size. Any little thing. I tell you, it's a real nice little radio. The Gonset is kind of, I don't hear many of those Gonset around anymore. It's got 10 tubes crammed in it, so it's got the tubes. Back to you.
Yeah, this was sort of a, I want to say top-of-the-line model, but it had dual conversion receiver. It had a 23 channel tunable receiver, which is the I guess the dial down, the black dial down there at the bottom, and looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 channels. Also has an S meter and a squelch, and I can't tell. Okay, the radio, the microphone is a plug-in wire, GONSET, and they were a division of Young Spring and Wire Corporation, and they were out of Burbank. I think wasn't General Radio out of that way too, here in Burbank, California. So I'm enjoying the radios tonight. Some of the more obscure ones, but Gonset was another manufacturer, like we had earlier, Hallicrafters and E.F. Johnson, that made a lot of amateur radio equipment. Gonset made some really neat stuff. They made what was called the communicator series of radios that were for civil defense. They had handles on them. They worked for 6 meters and 2 meters and 10 meters. They made conversion sets that went on your car radios so you could listen into 10 meters. It was a great, innovative company, and this was one of their offerings in the 11-meter Class D mode of operation. Back to you.
Yeah, okay. Well, this got a nice meter on the thing, and I'm glad it does, because you tune the radio to this meter right here. So the meter is pretty important on the thing. They knew what they were doing. They did it when they built it. And this thing has got, I believe it's got the original microphone. It doesn't have any name on the mic, but that doesn't mean anything. But it has got the same, it's a plug-in type mic, a push-in mic. And so it's probably a ceramic by electro voice again. It looks like a checkerboard microphone, but it's not chrome-plated like the other ones are. That's about it. And you're right about being in Burbank. It was close to General Radio Telephone Company. Thanks, Jack.
All right, according to their ad, I just popped up the ad. If you're at oldtuberadio.net, you will see the entire ad. If you're watching the video, we're just putting up the picture, but there's some verbiage below that. And they call it a heat... what do they call it? A heat-sensitive or universal low-drain power, heat-proof ceramic microphone, because they knew that this radio, which could run AC power, DC power, just might wind up in your automobile. So the heat-proof ceramic. And it sounds good. So I'm going to say it has definitely lasted the test of time through the heat of the Central Valley, and is doing a good job. The G15, it's a 10-tube transceiver, 4 channels, and you can find out more about it on in your Sam's PhotoFax CB4, page 31, Radio 9. Thanks for bringing by the Gonset G15.
Yeah, you hurt my feelings, Dennis. Yeah, it looks like a stock turner microphone on the thing. So apparently this one isn't stock unless they change something in mid-air there. I'll have to start looking for a turner mic that'll fit this thing. Anyway, thanks for checking it in.
All right, well, it's definitely putting in good audio, as you will hear if you check out the archives at oldtuberadio.net. Not bad. This is the Old Tube Radio Network. If you're tuning in at oldtuberadio.net, or maybe watching on the YouTube video, or maybe you've just dialed through, you're at 27085 in Central California. This is what we do every Saturday from 8 to 10 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. We stand by on the frequency here at Net Control, and our tube radio operators, our tube radio collectors will often take some time out of their Saturday evenings with friends and family to jump in and give us a transmission on some of their radio collections. And that's what we're doing tonight. And we got about another half hour to go, and we will be looking for radio number 10.
Break, OTR.
And Radio 10 it is, into the double digits, and hello, Chris, over.
And hello, Dennis. Excuse me. Just here, particular time here, I would like to check in my Citizens Little Phone Hallicrafters model CB3A. This is an 8-channel transceiver, and we are running this here also with the original handheld carbon-type microphone. Over.
All right, this is a good night for the classic early radios. Nothing too fancy, and sort of out of the box as they came with standard microphones and things like that. Another Hallicrafters. This will be in the middle between the CB1 we heard at the beginning of the net. And just moments ago from Paul, the CB7. This is in between. It's a CB3A. I think originally produced either at the end of 1962 or early 1963. Any of you, if you have some of the early CB catalogs, I bet you will find an advertisement probably that will show this radio. And the carbon microphone, not unlike you would have had the carbon element in your very heavy dial phone handset of 1963. Basically the same thing in this microphone, and it's sounding pretty good. Back to you.
Okay, now with the other two, did they have the carbon microphones on those, or what?
Which ones? Over?
The CB1 and the 7?
No, I think the CB1, and that's the one that had the little square microphone, and I believe that was ceramic. It was not carbon, so it would have been a lot lighter. And let's see, the ceramic microphones were popular in some of the smaller, tape recorder devices. This is definitely more communication style microphone than the CB1. So I think after they did that, they sort of changed things back over to a standard teardrop style microphone.
No, I was just kind of curious there. But anyway, this one's mine, and believe it or not, it's still working.
Yeah, it's still working fine here on 27085. And like the CB7, this also had the accessory panels. Let's see, this is, what is it, 8-channel, and the one we're showing here has an S-meter inserted in one of the panels. There's another panel you could take out and I think put the VFO. So they're very similar to what the 7 was as well. Good thing, sounding good for Radio 10.
Okay, Dennis. Well, thank you. I've used all my time up from my radio, so I guess I'll just get back over to the solid state one and listen to everything now.
All right, back to solid state, and that is okay. You've done your job tonight. We made it to double-digit radios, which we didn't do last night. An interesting thing about the Hallicrafters that you're on now, the earlier ones had 11 tubes. This had 7 tubes. They got rid of some of the rectifiers and other things, but they were able to lighten it up quite a bit with 7 tubes. CB5, page 5 is your schematics and info from the Sam's PhotoFax, or you can actually go to oldtuberadio.com, and there is a schematic there as well. $160 in 1963, so the price point not too bad at all. This is the Old Tube Radio Network. We're looking for Radio 11.
All right, Dennis. Thank you, and I'll be out listening. Have a good evening.
And who is that peeking in at the video? Hello, Rich. Waving a hand to all the tube radio operators and SWLs. Welcome aboard, Rich. We are doing pretty good with the older radios tonight. This is old tube radio night tonight. And we were thinking maybe we would get some of the E-Skip to come in. They were reporting that we had some last night on the sideband channels. We'll see what happens tonight. And let's see, a reminder, if you're amateur radio active, there is the, I want to say the end of summer, fall, whatever it is, VHF contest going on your UHF, VHF frequencies. So if you tune in some of those, you might be able to give some points two stations out there. I already did one, believe it or not. So I gave somebody my DM06. Also, what else can we report? We are looking for radio number 11 here in the last 15 minutes of the old Tube Radio Network. And just a little info, since we've had the Gonset radio checked in the G15 from Spring and Wire Company. Faust Gonset was the son of the originator of the original Gonset, believe it or not. And a note here says the Gonset Company didn't survive the transition to solid state, meaning that you probably won't see any solid state radios with the Gonset name on them, but some of you who are amateur radio operators that have been amateur radio operators for a while might remember SBE, sideband engineers, and that was Faust Gonset's other radios that he built in the mid-'60s. And they were very, again, utility radios, but very affordable. I remember my first amateur radio, Elmer, had a sideband engineer. I think it was a 6-meter radio. So they were very in line of what Gonset was doing with the smaller radios and 10 meters and 6 meters, but in the solid state mode, and worked a lot with civil defense and incorporating that in there. You are listening to the old Tube Radio Network.
What are the magic numbers?
27.085 megahertz, channel 11.
Are the magic letters?
OTR.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Radio Magic
Old Tube Radio.
for you.
And a little bit about the solar activity. Let's see, the flare, I guess, erupted September 6th, two powerful solar flares. Second was the most powerful. And more than a decade, it said, the most powerful sunstorm category blasted from the large sunspot on the sun's surface, strongest since 2015 at X2.2. So you know your flare designations. But then it was dwarfed 3 hours later with the X9.3 flare, and that was according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's space weather prediction, the NOAA. And so that is what's happening if you're wondering or having some problems communicating long distances. It could be because of that with our solar flare going on. And if you look at the numbers, you see the indexes are up. They went from the, I think, under 100 to the last I checked, they were in the 180s. They might be going down now. I don't know if those of you in the northern climates that are listening in have been experiencing the aurora borealis a little bit more than usual, but that would be thanks to our solar activity. Where we are in this latitude, I think it would have to be a really intense solar flare. And we were seeing the northern lights down this far, we would have some serious issues with communications of all sorts. Yeah, was there a station? Go ahead, I'll listen. It was hard to hear you. Over. Okay, hi there. This is the Old Tube Radio Network. We are in Fresno and hanging out here for another 10 minutes listening to the old tube radios to stop by, but we can hear you fairly well in central Fresno. Over. And let's see who else is stopping by the video. The mighty KUH. Hello, Brian, who is perhaps on this Saturday evening, where he's at maybe early Sunday morning, firing up the Drake L4B and putting some hurt onto the ionosphere. Anyway, thanks, Brian, for listening into the old tube radio tonight, where we are looking for Radio 11. And just a note on the helicopter since we've had so many checking in tonight. They went up to a CB. We've checked in a CB1, a CB3, and a CB7, and they actually went up with kind of skipping the numbers as they went, but not quite in order. But they went up to CB24, which was a 23-channel solid-state 5-watt transceiver from 1967. And then they had a CB181, which was a 2-channel Citizen Band 2-watt handheld 2-watt 14-transistor walkie-talkie. And my first set was a CB11A, which was a 100 milliwatt handheld. It was a 9-volt battery, and I had a couple of those. And I configured them, both of them. I made one, I had two of them. So I made one a receiver and one a transmitter, and I was able to use a relay to switch the power supply between the two walkie-talkies, because I really wanted a Browning Eagle, but I couldn't afford an Eagle. So I thought, well, I can make my own transmitter and receiver, and then I put a capacitor in line on the power supply side when it went to the receiver. So as the receiver shut down, of course, it took a while for it to for the power to go on, and it actually did make a little bit of a ping. And I think I amplified the audio on the transmitter walkie-talkie with the audio output of one of those old rim drive tape recorders. It patched it right into patched the output of the audio amp right into the speaker of the walkie-talkie, and I had my own dual Hallicrafters CB11A. I don't know what happened to those walkie-talkies. I probably fried them with the power supply, but anyway, I had a lot of fun with that. That was like 1968, 1969, 1970. So that's why I like the Hallicrafters radio. We are the Old Tube Radio Network. Thanks to you and your old tube radios, we are looking for more, specifically Radio 11.
Let's do some spelling.
OTR. 27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio. Old Tube Radio.
And coming up for last call of radios or SWL check-ins here on the Old Tube Radio Network, looking for Radio 11.
Breaker OTR.
The Breaker OTR, go ahead, please, over.
Yeah, this is SWL number 40, checking in on my old tube radio.
You know, this is a good place to do that. We are known as the Old Tube Radio Network, and we can assist you with your check-in. Go ahead.
Roger that. Okay, what we have here is a Gemtronics GTX 5000 40-channel CB transceiver. Yeah, and with the, with the Turner Expander 500 microphone.
All right, well, we finally got into the late 70s. We've been hanging around the early 60s tonight with the Gauntzes and Helicopters and E.F. Johnson radios and the General Radio Telephone, and we have skipped ahead to the final issue, which was a 40-channel chassis. I believe there were a couple. DAC did a 40-channel radio, and Browning, of course, had the Mark IV, and just about everybody else was using this base right here that Gemtronics did, the GTX 5000, and they all sounded really good because it was a good radio, all tubes. I think they. By this time, they had a couple of transistors thrown in there for good measure, but give us a transmission. You are Radio 11.
Roger that. Oh, I keep forgetting the meter on the front panel. You have to switch it if you want to, if you know, from transmit to receive. If you want to see what you're putting out, you have to put it on RF, and then if you want to see how strong the stations are coming in, you have to switch the meter and put it on S for signal strength. So I guess automation wasn't in mind when they designed this radio. I'm watching the coverage on the Hurricane Irma right now, and they say the C-130 pilots are reporting that the pressure inside the hurricane eye is decreasing, which might mean that the hurricane is actually getting stronger.
Wow. Well, they're predicting Category 4 at least. Stronger is not better. Hopefully it will take some diversion away from a Florida coastline, or any coastline for that matter. It can stay strong, but it's just not crash into the coast. We are keeping our fingers crossed on that. And you mentioned the switch, the SRF switch, and that was from that Panasonic chassis, I think. Something I always thought was a little clunky, and I'm not sure why they did that. I think what happened is the main chassis had a switch there. It had a position, and some of the other radios, I'm not sure if all the ones in that series did that. They may have allotted that switch position to do other things in some of their other radios. I'll have to check that out. But I always thought that was kind of not a good thing to have to switch between SRF. My Regency Imperial had a switchable S meter, but it would automatically switch when you transmitted to show you your RF. But you could switch it on the receive. It was SVC, so it was an S meter, a voltage, or current. But I think every time you transmitted, there was a relay that would kick it over to show your RF output without having to switch anything. So and those of us who are used to having some type of wiggle meter, as I call it, on a transmission, I know what you're saying, Larry. Is you look over and you see the meter dead. I mean, you see it pegged on the other side, and you're thinking, "Am I transmitting?" And you ask, "Oh yeah, I because I had in the guest position." Is that what's going on? I bet that catches you, huh?
You are exactly correct. And then I look over, I unkey and look over, and you're not coming in with anything on the meter. And then, oh yes, I have to switch it back. Very annoying. Let's see. Yeah, that's about it. One of these days I got to get it on frequency. I'm pretty sure this thing is still quite a bit off channel, maybe by a couple of kilohertz here. So maybe I should ship it to Florida and have the hurricane realign it for me.
Yeah, if you're only a couple of kilohertz off frequency, I think it's going to align it a little bit more than you want. I think some of the radios that switch may have been designated for like a range boost or something. I think it was there and they had to do something with it, and that probably wasn't the best choice. Before we go, take another transmission. I will saunter up to the receiver here. Here's the microphone moving, and we'll do a zero beat and find out exactly where you are on frequency. Over.
Okay. Transmit here and find out. As you're hearing on the internet stream, you're hearing a bunch of sounds. Okay, this is where I'm transmitting at, and wow, in the entire state of Florida, most of it is now colored purple. I've never seen that before. Yep. Anyways, okay, that should be long enough. Go ahead. Am I within FCC limits?
All right, let's talk about FCC limits. FCC limits, and I don't know if they've changed. They gave you, and you're supposed to be crystal controlled on your transmitter, which you are, and they gave you a 700 cycle or 700 hertz allotment, I think, low on frequency and high on frequency. So the span may be 1.4. But anyway, you could be no more than 700 low or 700 high. I'm saying that hoping that is indeed true. But the 700 cycles, 700 hertz goes into my mind. So that would be 27,084,300 or 27,085,700, somewhere in between that. You are at 27,083,500. So you are 2.5 or 2,500, he says, hoping his math is correct, cycles. So you are out of range with that crystal.
Oh boy, oh boy. Well, I'm going to have to start writing a letter to the FCC and apologize to them, and maybe even mail them the radio. I'm going to have to start writing a letter to the FCC and apologize.
Okay, well, no apologies necessary, and you are not, by the way, our most off-frequency radio tonight. I think Paul had that with one of the, maybe one of the Hallicrafters, but I can hear you just fine with what you've got. All right, let me back out of here, and I'm going to clear frequency. You're Radio 11, the Gemtronics GTX 5000. Yeah, if you want to, actually, I don't even know if that uses crystals. It probably uses a synthesized crystal. It might use a PLL by that time, so it might be a little bit more difficult to get things on frequency. But at least for our purposes, you're sounding mighty fine. And our thoughts go out to those in Florida who are hopefully in a safe spot. I noticed our Florida stations, I don't think, are listening in at oldtuberadio.net, and I'm actually kind of glad. I hope they are doing whatever is necessary to keep everybody safe. So, Larry, take another transmission on the Gemtronics GTX 5000, and the Jingle Singers are ready to get us out of here, and we'll see if there's any other stations that would like to check in before we get out of here on the Old Tube Radio Network.
Okay, and yeah, there was a listener in oh gosh, I can't remember the name, but it's near Tampa, Florida. Is northeast of the town, like Zikersville or something like that. But they're doesn't look like they're on now. And one of the cameras, the live cams in the Keys failed a few hours ago. So their Keys are probably getting starting to get hit pretty good by now. So let's hope that Irma does her thing very quickly and goes off into the Atlantic Ocean. I'm now clear and listening.
Okay, and all our friends in Georgia, Louisiana, Carolinas, that area are also going to get lots of water and lots of storms. So, all right, very good. Thank you, Larry, for the check-in. Let me check in with the jingle singers who are tapping on the glass, saying it is past time to be out of here. But we'll get one more item of interest.
You're tuned to
OTR. Channel 11.
right here in
Fresno, California.
Stay with us
Old Tube Radio.
and be modern.
Anybody else needing to check in before we sign out on the Old Tube Radio Network? And I apologize for all the kind of crunchy, crackly static tonight, but that could be atmospheric stuff, man-made noise, no e-skip at least here on AM, but we did pretty good with the radios tonight.
This is the Old Tube Radio Network. Ladies and gentlemen, stand by. It's time now for the current OTR totals.
Current and final totals of the evening here, and this is an unusual night. We did not hear. I'm looking. We did not hear any Browning radios. We did not hear any Tram radios. But what we did here was a good selection of very early radios from manufacturers who made the step from amateur radio and produced Class D items of interest. Our most heard manufacturer tonight was Hallicrafters. That hasn't not happened in a long, long time. And I didn't even have to check in the HT37. I started, Paul, see what you started with the Hallicrafters CB1 tonight. That was our first radio, their 1959 offering in the 11-meter radios, and they did quite a few. I think we counted them up to at least 16 or 17 in the Little Phone series. The E.F. Johnson Messenger 223, I thought maybe the E.F. Johnson would come in and tie the Hallicrafters. We got two of them tonight. The Messenger 223 from Louis for Radio 2. Chris on his General Radio Telephone Super MC11A, sounding good as always. Radio number 4, the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223 from SWL 84. Thanks for that, Jerry. Have a great time on your excursion. Well deserved, and you'll feel better when you get back, and you'll probably be glad to get back too. But right now, you're looking forward to it, I'm sure. Paul on the Hallicrafters CB7 was radio number 5. The Chris 23 Plus brought to us by Chris. Also, that was radio 6. He had radio 7 with the Gem Marine Products G PowerMate. He also had radio 8 with the Courier Royale. Radio 9 tonight was the Gonset G15 from Paul in North Fork. Have not heard the G15 in a while. Sounded really good audio, and I wasn't aware that they had such a fancy radio for a CB. But I guess when you get up into the numbers like that, you've got to start adding things. Hallicrafters CB3A Little Phone are completing our trio of Hallicrafters tonight. Thanks to Chris for Radio 10. And then, as you just heard, Radio 11 tonight, Larry on the Gemtronics GTX 5000. Kind of tying things in with the late 1977, 1978 Panasonic chassis that were the last, pretty much the last tube radios before it all went solid state. 73, everybody. Glad you could stop by. And again, we We hope that our stations in the Florida area and that are staying safe. And we hope that whatever damage occurs is not too much, but it doesn't look promising at this point. So we're hoping for the best on that. Thanks to our listeners at oldtuberadio.net, and let me just check the video to see if anybody's made any comments we have to comment on. And I think we're doing good all the way around. Thanks to Frodex and SearchLawrence.com for keeping the Nixie tubes glowing and all things digital doing well. And we will be back here next Saturday. 27085 is our frequency of choice. OldTubeRadio.net and OldTubeRadio.com. 73 from your Old Tube Radio Network.
Good night.
And see how long we can keep the YouTube video up. Good night, everybody.